Hello and welcome. Wherever you are in the world today, thank you for joining us for the Rise Traveler, unpacking conversations of sustainable travel. We are here to talk to eco-minded and socially conscious travelers, diversity and inclusion specialists, wildlife conservationists, environmental activists, and anyone using travel as a way to uplift and inspire. Together, we will go a step beyond the Instagram-ready world of travel and take a look at how travel can be a source of growth and development for all people and all communities. This podcast is an extension of the Rise Travel Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit committed to empowering young travelers through educational programs, research, study tours, and scholarships. Visit risetravelinstitute.org to learn more. And now, here's your host, Amy Hager.
And today I'm super excited to have Mira Shah, who actually took our flagship program while she was on assignment for a job in Kenya. And we're going to really dive into kind of her story about her experience with the flagship program. But also, we've just had this really great conversation about how sustainable travel is something meaningful, different to all of us, and our motivations and aspirations are very different. So Mira, thanks for jumping on today with me.
Thanks, Amy. Great to meet you and connect through this podcast.
Yeah. Well, okay. You were at a job and you were in Kenya while you actually took the flagship program. But what I found really interesting is before you went to Kenya, you were working remotely in Colombia. And what you had shared with me was you really just want a better understanding of what sustainable travel is to you as an individual traveler. And I think where we both also feel a common ground is we're defining what it is for ourselves, but we're still learning and trying to figure that out. So how did taking the flagship program kind of help you on that journey?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I think I don't know, I've had so many travel experiences in my past across so many different places. I've always been driven by curiosity. And just exploring cultures, learning about the world. And after I don't know, 7 or 6 years of just living in different places and traveling around, I was like, there's been definitely a few experiences I felt stood out. And it was always the experiences where I was having really authentic connections with people in different places. It was always about the people more than the place in a way. And I just, through my time in Colombia specifically, that was after COVID. It was the first travel experience I'd had after 2 years.
Yeah.
So I came in with a very different outlook, having that slow pace and COVID and just I don't know, doing a lot of personal reflection. So I came into the Colombia experience really intentional with I was just super slow and just exploring the place. I went to so many remote places by myself while I was there. And I don't know, it just all came together. I got really excited about sustainable, authentic travel. And I was like, this is an industry I really want to tap into and understand better. And so it's really just during my time in Colombia that led to that introspection. But I mean, I've had so many travel experiences in my past that have gotten me to this place of wanting to improve my understanding of sustainable travel and be just a more intentional traveler who thinks from an anti-oppression lens, which is what Rise really focuses on. So that was what excited me the most.
And so then tell me a little bit about your background and the work you do in this world.
Yeah, so I guess my career path has been a little bit all over the place, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
It's kind of woven together a lot of different interests across social impact, cultural immersion, and also just interweaved responsible travel in there. So I started my career actually working in international development in India and Nepal for a small social enterprise focused on empowering women in slum communities and rural urban villages by providing them platforms for entrepreneurship and business skills training. My role primarily involved managing operational and strategic projects to, support their expansion and beyond. Everything from developing, impact measurement frameworks to transitioning marginalized women to using digital technologies. And I also led a lot of international fellowship programs where we brought in fellows from different parts of the world to run some of these programs and lead some of these initiatives. So
nice.
How I
That's
started.
really interesting. Yeah. And so then what are you up to right now that you're super excited about?
So I guess I'm currently in a transition period in my career. So exploring a bunch of different opportunities. I am currently seeking opportunities in actually healthcare because that's an area of interest of mine, but
Yeah.
also on the side, really thinking about potentially how to start planting seeds to build a future sustainable tourism business.
Mhm.
Still defining kind of what shape that'll take, but just actively taking courses and engaging in different projects like Rise, for example. I'm going on their experiential journey as well in Feb.
Okay.
And then also taking another destination management course with GW. And I
Okay.
just joined Fora. I don't know if you know them, but they are
Mhm.
basically just one of the platforms for travel agents. So
Yeah.
just try to deepen my knowledge of travel in the industry better.
Well, share with me any moments in your travel, because you did mention that you've traveled quite a bit and obviously you've lived in different countries and such. So, are there moments in your travels that have created that positive impact on the area that you visited, whether it was intentional or even now as you reflect, it was a positive impact?
Yeah, I'm not like it's still hard to define what a positive impact is. I know I've had experiences that feel authentic and connective that have shaped me positively, and I personally feel like I haven't left a negative mark on a location.
Yeah.
I guess I'll speak to obviously my time at my last company working with the women entrepreneurs. That's one, but while I was in India, I also did a lot of my own traveling solo.
Mhm.
So one really cool experience I had was when I solo traveled up to Northeast India, this small state called Sikkim.
Okay.
And during my travels there, I actually, beyond just like the typical tourist spots, I came across a super untouched, like pristine part called Zangu, which is actually a territory reserved for local communities. And you
Okay.
basically require a permit to access Zangu. So you can't just go there
Oh,
without and that permit can only be secured through booking a local homestay there. And the only way to see it or stay there is through homestays. So that was a really cool
yes.
experience for me. And I don't know, it provided an opportunity to kind of immerse myself organically in a place without feeling like I was causing disruption or pulling people away from their daily lives. And I just spent most of my time there really just connecting with the family who ran the homestay, sitting
Yeah.
by the fire, enjoying meals with them. They would maybe take me out on, you know, organic adventures around the neighboring villages. It was not like no formalized tour packages or anything.
Interesting.
And I think that experience really, really shaped me positively.
Had
While
you
I was kind of an outsider, it was still really cool to see that it was like the homestay was a mandatory experience and
Yeah.
it just felt like I was respecting the community's dignity and
Yeah.
agency.
Had you done a homestay experience prior to that?
I had a few like when I was traveling in like Indonesia,
Mhm.
specifically through Bali, but Bali is like, as we all know, a very trafficked part of the world. I'm sure this has been covered on other podcasts.
Yeah.
And so it felt like those homestay experiences, while authentic to some degree, I still felt like they were really tailoring, their services and what they were doing to like meet, the demand of what tourists wanted.
Yeah.
um it felt more like it wasn't like it was their home, but I felt like they had to commercialize it a bit more, whereas
Mm,
this
get it.
experience felt super like I was like in the mountains up in the middle of nowhere just with a family, and
Yeah.
maybe other people who were trying to travel similar to or who had a traveler style similar to mine, because other people at the homestay too were really cool, very different types of travelers I got to meet on
Yeah.
that experience.
You had mentioned a little bit earlier that slow travel is kind of something that you've enjoyed experiencing. How do you define that?
I almost feel like it's like going somewhere and doing what I do in my daily life, but in a
Mm.
different place. Like,
Yeah.
meaning like wandering. Sometimes in my daily life, I just want to sit and nap and I don't want to like go out and do thousands of things. And I feel like when I travel too, it's not like the first 3 or 4 days in a place, I kind of just want to just understand my neighborhood, walk
Yeah.
around a bit, explore the cafes, get to know the place. before I'm like, what offerings do you have? Where can I
Yeah.
adventure to? It's like I really just I want to get to know, my local coffee shop. I love coffee, or
Yeah.
if it's a city, obviously, not in the middle of the mountains, but or whatever that looks like, right? So that to me is like slow travel, really not having like this set agenda going in and having a set expectation of what you're going to get out of a place, but really just going there
Going
and
to live and
living
be.
your daily life.
Yeah.
As long as your daily life is also, sustainable, of course,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the way I live, but the way I live my day to day is also in line with the values I kind of bring to travel, so.
Right. So was there anyone that you've met either during that trip or any of the other travels that has really impacted you in a way that you could never imagine before you had met them?
I mean, yeah, I'll speak to my time because I also did, in my past, I've gone on I've had several experiences. So I did a working holiday visa actually in Australia right after college, where I just basically got this visa and decided I'm gonna backpack around Australia and make money through baristaing, waitressing, etc.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, but I also kind of at the time still was really driven by sustainability. So I was like, you know what, I want to learn how other countries, like just learn about sustainable initiatives in other countries.
Okay.
So when I think when I got to Australia, obviously I started my experience doing a work away, which is really cool. And then when I got to the city of Sydney, I was kind of in a backpackers hostel, just like thinking like, this is fun, but it's not like I'm not feeling very purpose driven right now.
Yeah.
I was like, I do want to work at a cafe to make money, but I also want to learn. I don't know. I was like, I was feeling a bit lost, but I found this cool Airbnb experience where it was about like it was basically the only off-grid home in an inner city
Hmm.
that you could tour.
Yeah.
So I basically decided to just like tour this guy's home, and I ended up being the only person on this tour. The guy's name's Michael Mobbs. He's relatively famous, I guess, in Australia for like his off-grid home and a lot of other sustainability work he does.
Okay.
But because I was the only one on this tour, I really got to connect with him, and just like I
Yeah.
got to ask all the different types of questions I wanted to ask. I told him how I was like, I came on this working holiday visa, really like just wanting to explore, but now I'm kind of driven a little bit more, like wanting more purposeful work. And he just ended up being this like really cool mentor for me during the rest of my time in Australia, because this was the start of my experience. And I asked him sort of, what can I do to feel like I'm, involved in something purpose driven? And he
Yeah.
actually connected me to the company I ended up working for in India and
Oh,
Nepal. So like
wow.
through him, through this one tour, the spontaneous tour I decided to
Yeah.
take, I got to learn about like internet, like I got an opportunity to work in international development, doing something that I felt at the time was very purposeful for me.
Yeah.
And it just
Wow.
made me realize how random encounters and connections, while they might feel random, really do at some point add up to something. It's very
Yeah.
like everybody brings some meaning into your life in some way. And this was a really cool, I don't know, spontaneous, it really led to my organic career path and my
Yeah.
passion for sustain. I think that had probably was the start in some
Oh,
ways.
yeah. Well, and I'm curious how you seem to go in with curiosity and with question. How do you ask questions and try not to offend or maybe say something inappropriate? Like, how do you approach that? Because you are a questioner, I can tell.
That's really hard. You're saying how do I kind of go in and
And
ensure
ask
that
the
I'm
hard
not
questions.
like,
Yeah.
I don't know if I guess now I'm way more conscious maybe than I was when I first started traveling.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really I don't really overthink, I guess, in terms of like political correctness or this. I kind of make sure. I'm thinking of my time in Kenya now, when I was in like a random went on a safari and was asking actually the Maasai communities who were working at the lodge, like about their experience working at the lodge and how they feel about the fact that, a lot of the safari experiences have actually, like impacted their land.
Right.
So I think it's more just like doing my due diligence to actually understand like historical context of like where I am, like understand the people I'm speaking with, like by researching them or
Yeah.
like reading about it and whatnot, talking to other people in the communities as well. I don't know if I don't know if that answers your question. I think it's just more like
I think it
making
does.
sure I gain context prior to entering spaces is like my
Right.
short answer
Well,
to
and it seems like you're pretty
yeah.
intentional as well. So you want to make sure you have at least a baseline
Yeah.
understanding before you enter an interaction, it seems like.
Yeah, it kind of happens organically, I'd say. I think
Yeah.
also I think people it's an energy you give off, right? Like people understand when you're coming from a place of curiosity and intention and not a place of like I don't
Judgment.
know, judgment
Yeah.
or anger, whatever that looks like.
Yeah. Hmm. Well, so then I am kind of with all of the travel experiences that you have had, and one thing we do talk a lot about with our flagship program and at Rise is again that reflection and realizing that we're never going to be batting 100. It's never going to be 100% perfect. Have there been times in your travel that maybe you've made that less positive decision, and what did you learn from that?
There have been several. I actually had to write notes on these because I was like, there's so many instances where I was like, this doesn't feel right. Why doesn't it feel right? And like
Yeah.
reflections. I think so I think it's twofold. Like obviously with there's been instances where I've stayed in potentially exploitative Airbnbs to
Mm,
partying, though not super excessively because I'm not by any means a partier, but like partying in
yeah.
Bali. But I think reflecting on my experiences, I think I'll speak to like two things. One is like when I visited an elephant sanctuary in Thailand.
Uh-huh.
So basically during that time as well, I learned sort of like post going to the sanctuary, the historical context of these sanctuaries,
Okay.
and like Rise obviously further enhanced that knowledge.
Right.
But I realized the sanctuary I chose to go to in Thailand, um, while there are several ethical ones, this one didn't feel ethical,
Mm.
basically because it seemed quite performative at the elephant's expense. There were like various instances where we, forced elephants to do things against their wills, like walk up hills and mountains with us, get bathed, fed.
Yeah.
I generally, with animal tourism, I generally question, even and now with more intention, experiences that involve feeding, touching animals, forcing them to do things they aren't inclined to do.
Yeah.
And one thing I noticed a lot in these sanctuaries is like the owners consistently touting how there are issues with riding elephants because that's a forceful practice and all of
Yeah.
that. But I felt like our interactions with the elephants still very much felt coercive, even if it wasn't
Mm.
riding them.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so I think that was one. And then others were like volunteerism trips I took in college that I can speak to later. But
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
big one.
and again, I think as we live this life and have more experiences, it's those experiences that really make us more aware of the intentions that we want to bring to an area that we're traveling to or to an interaction that we're having. And so, knowing what you know now, what would you say to yourself, young traveler, 10 years ago, even, that you wish you would have known 10 years ago?
Hmm. Um, I don't know. I'd say many things. I'd probably say like don't jump on opportunities to engage in excursions without understanding, like without doing your due diligence, your research.
Yeah.
That's a big one. Um, think about where you're staying. Like where are you actually located in the city you're in? Or who are you seeing regularly? Are you seeing local communities or are you seeing predominantly, travelers from different parts of the world?
Right.
And I guess like which I think at the time I told myself this anyway. It was like, don't go on those random party bar
Yeah.
hopping
Yeah.
excursions. I was like, I did that when I traveled like twice and was like, why am I doing this? I just want to enjoy
Yeah.
it. So those are key, like some main pieces of advice I'd give myself.
Yeah. I like that. So then we talked about your past self. Well, looking into your crystal ball, what or how do you see the future of the travel industry tomorrow? And especially knowing kind of you're going down this path of maybe exploring being in business and sustainable travel. So what do you think about it for tomorrow?
Yeah, well, I kind of hope, and this is what a lot of my Rise essay was on. I hope really like consumer consciousness shifts
Mm,
to pave way to more, I guess, authentic, collaborative, connective experiences, because I really think as consumers, we are the ones who can actually shift the mindset, and
right.
whatever we kind of want out of experiences, that's what tour packages are going to offer. So
Yeah.
my real goal is to kind of shift, like, so especially socially minded younger travelers. I mean, there's already this growing demand for more meaningful experiences abroad, and not just abroad, but in their day-to-day lives, right? There's a big sustainability focus, a big like focus on investing in experience over material goods. And so how
Yeah.
can we as travelers and tourism professionals, leverage that, right? So really, I guess the goal for me is to like somehow shift mindsets.
Mm.
And I want to see that happen on a larger scale into the future, through, tour packages and whatnot.
Yeah. So then, and knowing that it's gonna have to be consumer driven, I think is really, really the key. And I'm curious how this will tie to your last answer, but what legacy do you want to leave behind in this world?
Um, that is a hard one. So
I know it's a
I
big
guess
question.
it's I'm gonna say this more broad, philosophical, whatever that looks like, but
Yeah.
I kind of want to open people's minds and hearts to engage more fully with the richness of life,
Hmm.
and cultivate their sense of curiosity and intrigue for the living world. Um, I don't know, when we like kind of feel, or when we truly see, feel, and understand the interconnection of all things in the world, I think it dissolves all these like limiting beliefs we might have about ourselves as well. So that's what kind of why I'm so obsessed with traveling, because that is something that it has really supported me in, is like, I had all these limiting beliefs about, how I need to live my life, what I
Yeah.
need to do for work. And yeah, if I can somehow in some way like shape the way people think about these systems and structures that we're potentially constrained by, and open
Yeah.
their minds to something beyond that, that would be like, the legacy I'd like to leave.
That's a good legacy to leave behind. Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really great to learn more about your journey and your experience with the Rise flagship program. And we're excited to hear what you end up tackling next.
Yeah, thanks, Amy. Really enjoyed chatting with you as well about all of it.
Love it. Well, that brings us to the end of our journey today. And if you liked what you've heard and you want to hear more, please subscribe, like, and comment. You can follow us at Rise Travel Institute on Facebook and Instagram. And just remember, here at Rise Travel, we really believe travel is a powerful tool for positive, transformative change. And if you're a college student, maybe planning to study abroad, or a professional thinking about the gap year or a sabbatical or even remote work, or really anyone who's currently traveling the world and wants to understand how to travel in a sustainable way, we do encourage you to head over to risetravelinstitute.org to learn more information on our educational courses. And we'll be back soon with another episode. But until then, keep roaming, keep learning, and continue to be a Rise Traveler. Bye-bye.
This podcast is an extension of the Rise Travel Institute, a 501c3 nonprofit committed to empowering young travelers through educational programs, research, study tours, and scholarships. Visit risetravelinstitute.org to learn more.